I want to tell you about a night, not a dramatic night. Nothing extraordinary happened. Just an ordinary night. The kind that plays out in hundreds of thousands of homes where parents have young babies. 2 a.m, a mother named Sarah, 29 years old, her firstborn, 4 months old, had been asleep for maybe 40 minutes after an exhausting day. Then the crying started. Not a soft whimper. Full, urgent crying. The kind that makes any parent's chest tighten the moment they hear it. Sarah jolted upright. No time to think. Her hands were already reaching toward the crib before her eyes were fully open. Heart racing, breathing uneven. Half her body still caught in sleep. The other half in that sharp, adrenaline-soaked alertness that only parents of newborns know. She picked her daughter up, rocked her, patted her back, swayed side to side. The baby cried harder. She switched positions, tried nursing, checked the diaper, walked slow circles around the dark room. Still crying. 15 minutes, 20, 30. By the time the baby finally settled, Sarah lowered herself to the floor, back against the wall, daughter asleep on her chest, and cried quietly in the dark. Not from pain, not from anger, but because she had no idea what she was doing wrong. The hardest part? She wasn't doing anything wrong. She loved her daughter. She responded every time. She showed up, every single time, without fail. By every conventional measure, she was a good mother. But there was something nobody had ever told her. Not the books, not the pediatrician, not her own mother or grandmother. Something very small, very specific, that happens in the few seconds before her hands make contact with her baby. And that thing was determining everything that came after. That's what I want to talk about today. Not sleep training methods, not feeding schedules, not the endless debate about whether to let babies cry it out. I want to talk about 10 seconds, 10 specific, doable seconds, achievable by anyone. At 2 a.m. or 10 at night, or in the middle of an exhausted afternoon, that neuroscience says can completely transform how your baby's body receives your care. And when you understand why they work, not just as a formula to follow, but at the level of what's actually happening inside your baby, you will never pick your baby up the same way again. Part 1. What we don't see when our baby cries. Before we talk about the 10 seconds, I need you to understand what's actually happening when your baby cries. Not at the surface, but underneath, inside the nervous system, in the biochemistry, in the things that aren't visible to the naked eye. When a baby cries, most adults instinctively think they need something. Hungry, wet, in pain, overtired, and yes, they do need something. But that's the view from outside. From inside the baby's brain and body, the story is far more complex. Your baby's autonomic nervous system, the part that governs heart rate, breathing, cortisol levels, muscle tone, is in a state that neuroscientists call dysregulated. Heart rate is elevated. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is rising. Muscles throughout the body have tensed. The brain's alarm system is running at full capacity. The crying isn't the problem. The crying is a symptom, a nervous system sending out a distress signal. And here is the single most important thing I want you to take from this. The thing that most parenting books don't say clearly enough: your baby cannot self-regulate, not because they aren't trying, but because the part of the brain responsible for self-regulation, the prefrontal cortex, isn't developed enough yet. It won't be fully developed until adolescence. Some research suggests even later. What does that mean in practice? It means your baby needs to borrow your nervous system to return to a state of balance. They don't just need your physical presence. They need your physiological state, your heart rate, your breathing rhythm, your cortisol level, the tension or softness in the muscles of your hands. Scientists call this process co-regulation, and it is one of the most significant discoveries in developmental neuroscience in the past several decades. But here's the part that most people miss entirely. Co-regulation only works if you, the caregiver, are in a regulated state. If you arrive at your baby's side in a state of panic, with elevated cortisol, trembling hands, and rapid shallow breathing, you are not bringing calm to your baby. You are bringing more activation. You are sending a signal through every point of physical contact that says, this is a dangerous situation. Stay alert. Keep the alarm running. And the crying escalates, not because your baby is stubborn, not because your baby is difficult, but because your baby's nervous system is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Reading the environment and responding accordingly. You, without meaning to, are communicating that the environment is not safe. That's what was happening for Sarah at 2 in the morning. She loved her daughter without condition. She arrived the moment the crying started. But she arrived with a racing heart, unsteady breath, a body still jolting out of sleep, and her daughter's nervous system read every bit of that. 10 seconds. That's all she needed to change it. Part 2. Seconds 1 through 3. The most important seconds of all. I want you to picture a scene. You're sitting in a waiting room. Something is making you anxious. An important meeting, a test result, news you haven't received yet. Then the door opens. The person you've been waiting for, the one person who can help, walks in fast, glancing at their phone, breathing quickly, voice clipped and tense. What do you feel? Not more reassured, more unsettled. Because your body reads their body and concludes. Even they look stressed. This must be worse than I thought. That is exactly what happens to your baby when you arrive in an activated state. Now picture the same waiting room, the same anxiety, and the person who walks in slowly, sits down beside you, breathing steady, shoulders relaxed, doesn't need to say much. Just the presence of a calm body in your space. What do you feel? Better. Immediately, before they've said a single word. That is co-regulation. And that is what you can give your baby. But only if you regulate yourself first. So how? In 3 seconds. Here's the technique, and I want you not to underestimate it just because it's simple. Before your hands touch your baby, stop. Take 1 breath. Let it out. Not a normal breath. Inhale through your nose, slowly. Count to 4. Exhale through your mouth, slower. Count to 6. And as you breathe out, consciously release tension from 2 specific places, your shoulders and your jaw. Why those 2? Because they're the areas where stress accumulates most intensely in adult bodies. And they're also the first things your baby feels the moment contact happens. When your shoulders are tight, your arms are rigid. When your arms are rigid, the way you hold your baby is rigid. Your baby feels that in every muscle that touches their small body. When your jaw is tight, the muscles across your entire face are tight. And your baby from as early as 6 to 8 weeks of age is reading micro-expressions on your face with remarkable precision. 3 seconds, 1 breath. Release the shoulders. Soften the jaw. Sounds too simple, but here's what happens physiologically when you do it. Your heart rate slows, just slightly, but enough for your autonomic nervous system to shift from activation toward regulation. Cortisol begins to drop. Muscles soften. And when you touch your baby a second later, your baby isn't making contact with a contained storm. They're making contact with calm that's being offered. There's a neuroscientist named Stephen Porges who spent his career studying what he calls polyvagal theory. The human nervous system doesn't have just 2 states, safe and threatened. It has 3. And the third state, what he calls the ventral vagal state, is the state of genuine social connection, of common presence, of being able to both receive and transmit safety to another person. Only when we're in that third state can we truly co-regulate with someone else. Only then does our touch actually soothe. And that state can't be faked. It can't be performed. Your baby's body knows the difference. 3 intentional breaths are the fastest, simplest, most well-researched way to move your nervous system into that state. 3 seconds. That's all. Part 3. Seconds 4 through 7. What arrives before your hands do? You've breathed, shoulders dropped, jaw soft, and you're beginning to move toward your baby. But don't go quietly. In the next 4 seconds before your hands reach your baby, let your voice arrive first. Not a high, urgent, anxious voice. Not the voice that many parents unconsciously use when they're frightened. Oh, sweetheart, why are you crying? It's okay. Please stop. Baby, please. That voice, however full of love it is, carries the frequency of worry, and your baby reads it instantly. Use a low voice, slow, warm, the voice of someone who is calm in this moment, and say something very simple. I'm here, I'm coming. Or, hey, sweet girl, I hear you. Daddy's right here. Nothing more than that. 4 seconds, a few words, low and steady. Think back to a time you were in the dark, a dark room. You weren't sure if anyone else was in there, and someone suddenly touched your shoulder from behind. What happened first? You, startled. Heart jumped. Body activated a threat response before thought could catch up. But what if that same person had called your name from across the room first? Hey, it's me. Your body's reaction is completely different. The touch, when it comes, lands on a nervous system that was prepared. That's how the brain works with sudden contact in adults and in babies. And in babies, the effect is even more pronounced. Your baby's auditory system develops before most other sensory systems. As early as 16 to 20 weeks in the womb, your baby began to hear, and a caregiver's voice, specifically the emotional shape of it. What linguists call prosody is processed by the infant brain in a very particular way. When a baby hears a familiar, warm voice, not the content, but the melody, the rhythm, the emotional tone, it bypasses cognitive processing and travels directly to the parts of the brain that regulate the stress response. Your baby doesn't need to understand the words. They just need to hear them. And that alone can begin lowering your baby's cortisol before you've even made physical contact. Let that sit for a moment. Just by using your voice, low, slow, warm, you've already begun the soothing process before any touch has happened. But there's a second thing the voice does, and this is what I find even more fascinating. The human brain, your baby's brain, and your own function significantly better when it can predict what's about to happen. Uncertainty is one of the most powerful triggers of stress response. Predictability, on the other hand, is one of the most powerful sources of calm. When your voice arrives first, I'm here, I'm coming, your baby's brain receives a predictable sequence. Sound gives then contact. Information gives then action. A nervous system that knows what's coming next is a nervous system that can begin to prepare, to shift from bracing to receiving. When your touch arrives after that, it lands on a system that is ready. No longer caught off guard. No longer jolted into further activation. And here's one more thing I want you to try, if you can. Use the same phrase every time. I'm here, I'm coming. Hey baby girl, I hear you. Mommy's right here. Whatever feels natural to you, but try to keep it consistent. The reason is this. Over weeks and months of repetition, that phrase becomes a cue for your baby's nervous system. The brain begins associating those sounds with safety arriving. And over time, just hearing those sounds, even before the contact comes, starts triggering the calming response. That's not conditioning in any negative sense. That's the brain learning. This is the signal that everything is about to be okay. I can start to relax right now. 4 seconds, a few words, low and steady. That's all it takes. Part 4, seconds 8 through 10, the thing nobody thinks about. All right. You've breathed. You've spoken. And now you're moving toward your baby. Here are seconds 8, 9, and 10. And I'll bet most of you have never considered this, even though you've been doing the opposite hundreds of times without knowing it. Lower yourself down before you pick your baby up. Kneel, crouch, sit on the floor. Whatever brings your body down to close to your baby's level. Then approach, then touch, then lift. I know this sounds strange, especially at 2 in the morning with aching knees and eyes that aren't fully open yet. But let me explain why this isn't a small detail. Why it might actually be the third most important thing in this entire 10 seconds. Try to think about this experience from your baby's perspective. Your baby is lying in their crib, or on the playmat, or anywhere significantly lower than adult eye level. Their crying nervous system activated, every sense heightened and on alert. And suddenly, a large shape appears from above, descending quickly. 2 large hands dropping from a height, an entire body many times larger than theirs, moving downward in a vertical drop. Your baby's brain doesn't have time to process. This is mom. This is safe. Your baby's brain is responding to the geometry of the approach, and that geometry looks like any large object descending rapidly from overhead. The orienting system, the primitive part of the brain that responds to the environment before conscious thought can catch up, activates, not a full threat response, but enough to add another layer of arousal to a nervous system that's already overwhelmed. This isn't speculation. It's been observed across primate research, and humans are not exceptions. When caregivers approach distressed offspring from above, soothing takes longer, crying sometimes increases in the first moments of contact, and the infant takes more time to reach a regulated state. When caregivers lower themselves to near the offspring's level before contact, the reverse, faster soothing, less resistance to being held, faster heart rate stabilization. The geometry of the approach changes the entire experience. But I want to talk about the second thing that lowering yourself does. And this is the part that I think is more beautiful than any scientific explanation. When you bring your body down to your baby's level, you are no longer a large entity descending from above. You are arriving alongside. The approach becomes horizontal rather than vertical, equal rather than overpowering. In the wordless language of the body, the language that your baby's nervous system reads before any other, that means, I'm not coming to manage you. I'm coming to be with you. That's respect. That's equality. And those things don't need to be understood to be felt. I remember the first time I read about this, I stopped for a long time, because I realized this isn't only a baby care technique. This is the principle behind every genuine human connection. When you truly want to reach someone who is suffering, you don't stand above them looking down. You sit beside them. You bring yourself to their level. You communicate through your body. I'm not up here helping you from a distance. I'm here, with you, in this space. That's what lowering yourself does in 3 seconds, without a single word. Part 5. What happens after 10 seconds, and the difference you'll feel. Now your hands are on your baby. You're lifting them up. And here's what I want you to notice. Especially the first few times you try these 3 steps, the experience of holding your baby will feel different. Not because your baby has changed, but because you have. Your baby in your arms may not stop crying instantly. This isn't magic. But you'll notice that the contact feels different. Less like fighting a problem, more like holding someone who needs to be held. And your baby, gradually, over the next 30 or 60 seconds, will begin to settle in a different way. Not silenced, not managed into stopping, but their nervous system genuinely finding balance and contact with yours, which is now calm. I want to be honest with you about something here, because I know it's the question many of you are already asking. Will these 3 steps make my baby stop crying faster? The honest answer, sometimes yes, sometimes no. And I don't want to promise anything different, because this isn't a technique for shutting down crying more efficiently. This is a fundamentally different orientation toward what it means when your baby cries. The rescuer wants the crying to stop. That's the goal. And when that goal isn't reached, frustration builds, tension builds, and a negative cycle begins. The co-regulator wants their baby's nervous system to find its way home. The crying may stop sooner or later depending on what caused it, but the quality of the experience, what your baby goes through in the time between your arrival and their settling, is completely different. And it is that quality of experience, repeated thousands of times across the first year of life, that builds something very large inside your child. Part 6. What's being built and why it lasts. Every time your baby cries and you come, not just physically, but regulated, with your voice arriving first, with your body lowered to meet them, something is being written into your baby's nervous system. Not memory in the way we usually think of it, but neural patterning pathways reinforced through repetition, shaping how the nervous system responds to stress, to connection, to the world. That pattern sounds like this. When I'm in distress, someone comes. When someone comes, I am safe. When I am safe, I can find my way back to calm. Repeated enough times, that pattern becomes the default of your baby's nervous system. Not a conscious belief, but an automatic physiological response. This is how the world works. Distress is temporary. Help arrives. I can get through this. That is the foundation of what developmental psychology calls secure attachment. And secure attachment, as research from the Minnesota Longitudinal Study, and dozens of others has shown, predicts things that matter enormously in adult life: mental health, relationship quality, resilience in the face of adversity, even academic achievement. All of it begins in thousands of small moments, including the 10 seconds before you pick your baby up. But there's a second thing being built, and this is what rarely gets discussed. Your baby's capacity for Remember what I said at the beginning, babies can't self-regulate. They need to borrow your nervous system. That's true, but when a baby borrows your nervous system enough times, not rescued, but co-regulated, they are gradually internalizing the pattern, learning it from the inside. And researchers who follow babies who've been consistently co-regulated find something remarkable. By around 18 to 24 months, these children begin showing a very particular behavior. When they fall, when they're startled, when something hurts, they pause for a beat before crying, almost as if searching for something inside before calling out for something outside. They are doing internally what you have been doing externally for them for nearly 2 years. That's not coincidence. That's the brain using neural pathways that were built through thousands of co-regulation experiences. That's the capacity for self-regulation taking root. And that capacity, the ability to self-soothe, to find balance, not to be completely swallowed by emotion, is one of the most valuable psychological assets a person can have. It will serve your child in every relationship, every challenge, every difficult moment of their life. And its seed is planted in the 10 seconds before you pick them up. Repeat it every day. Part 7. This runs both ways. I want to say one more thing. Something that I think matters just as much as everything we've already covered, but gets almost no attention. Co-regulation isn't just good for your baby. It's good for you. Here's how it works. When you practice these 3 steps, breathing before touching, speaking before arriving, lowering yourself before lifting, you're not just changing how your baby experiences care, you're changing how you experience giving it. Much of the real exhaustion of new parenthood, the kind that goes deeper than sleep deprivation, doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from a kind of purposeless repetition, doing the same thing over and over without feeling like it's leading anywhere, without feeling like it's building anything. When you understand why these 10 seconds matter, when you actually feel the difference in how your baby responds to your regulated presence, the act of caregiving starts to carry different weight. It's no longer fighting to stop the crying. It's doing something real, something that's building, something worth doing. And that changes everything psychologically. But there's a second layer to this. When you practice intentional breathing before every pickup, not once, but many times each day, across many months, you are genuinely training a nervous system regulation skill. You are teaching your own nervous system to move from activation to calm faster and more efficiently. You are building neural pathways that allow you to notice the activated state and choose a response, rather than being swept along by it. Parents who practice consistent co-regulation, according to several longitudinal studies, report lower anxiety levels, better emotional regulation, and higher confidence in their parenting role compared to those who don't. Not because their lives are easier, but because they are practicing regulation every day without realizing it. The regulation runs both ways. Your baby learns from you how to return to calm. And you, through needing to regulate yourself in order to co-regulate with them, learn to return to calm better too. That is one of the most beautiful paradoxes of parenting a young baby. Part 8. When you can't do it and what that means. Before I finish, I need to say something directly. There will be nights you don't manage these 3 steps. Not just one night, many nights. There will be moments when your baby cries and you're out of bed and you're holding them before your brain has caught up with any of this. There will be times you're too exhausted, too overwhelmed, too depleted to pause and breathe. And that is completely okay. This is not a formula that needs to be executed perfectly every time. No parent can, or should, be fully regulated in every situation. Research on secure attachment is very clear about this. It's not perfection that creates healthy attachment. It's consistent good enough. The British psychologist, Donald Winnicott, spent decades writing about what he called the good enough mother. Not perfect. Good enough. And good enough is enough. What matters is that when you can pause, pause. When you can breathe, breathe. When you can speak before touching, speak. Not every time, but enough times for the pattern to form. And on the nights you can't manage it, Please let yourself off the hook without piling guilt on top of exhaustion. You are doing the best you can in that moment. That has always been, and will always be, enough. The ending. Back to Sarah. I want to end by coming back to where we started. Sarah, 29 years old, 4-month-old daughter, 2 in the morning, sitting on the floor in the dark, crying quietly because she didn't know what she was doing wrong. The answer was that she wasn't doing anything wrong. She was getting most of it right. She just didn't know about the 10 seconds. A few weeks after that night, after someone shared with her what core regulation actually means, how the nervous system actually works, and what these 3 small steps actually do, she tried it. Not every time, but the times she had enough presence of mind to remember. She told me the first thing she noticed wasn't that her daughter settled faster. The first thing she noticed was that she felt different. Less like she was fighting something. Less like she was failing. More like she was doing something that mattered. I don't know how to explain it exactly, she said. But when I stopped and breathed before picking her up, I felt like I was actually there with her. Not trying to stop the crying. Actually, there with her in it. I think that's the most accurate description of co-regulation I've ever heard. Not a technique. Not a formula. But a shift in how you show up. 3 steps. 10 seconds. Every day. Stop and breathe, so you bring calm, not the storm. Speak before you touch, so your baby knows safety is coming before it arrives. Lower yourself first, so you arrive beside them, not descend upon them. 10 seconds. Not perfectly, every time, but enough times for something to be built inside your baby, and inside you. And the next time you hear the crying start at 2 in the morning, when your hands are already reaching before your brain has fully woken up, remember this. You're not trying to stop the crying. You're arriving. And the way you arrive in those 10 seconds is something your child will carry with them for the rest of their life. Of the 3 steps, the pause and breath, speaking before touching, or lowering yourself down, which one feels hardest to imagine doing in the moment? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.